Hello, this is Sarasota Plant and welcome back to my channel. It has been over a year since I gave you my Calathea collection and care video, and I figured you guys deserve an update on how all of my Calatheas are doing. I've added a few, I've lost a few, but overall my collection's still doing okay for the most part. My Calathea collection is never perfect because that is how Calatheas kind of are. You kind of always have to work with them and they'll go dormant and come back and do all of these things and you're treating for pests. I definitely want to give you some updates as to how all of the Calathea are doing. I will split screen with previous footage from my last video to show if the plants have gotten better, worse, don't exist anymore, all those sorts of things. When I say Calathea, I am including Maranta and Stromanthe in that category. Also, I know that some Calathea have been reclassified as Goeppertia. I believe I'm saying that right. It's taken me so long to figure out the difference between Calathea and Goeppertia, and I still need to figure that out. But for right now, I'm just gonna lump them and say Calathea. As far as basic care goes with Calathea, you wanna give them medium indirect light in almost all cases. They don't like direct light and they can't really do well in low light. These are slower growing than say a philodendron or a monstera. So you can't really afford to lose some of that optimal growth by giving it lower light. So I would definitely aim to do that in medium indirect light. Give it about as high a humidity as you can stand. 60%, 50+% is really optimal for these plants. They can do okay with lower humidity just depending on your conditions, but definitely don't go below 40% for these, I'd say. Definitely aim for closer to 60% if you can swing it. They are very, very pest prone, especially in my case. I get spider mites all the time. So I treat mine using my spider mite treatment video, which I will link in the eye and also down below. I'll show you all my methods, but that is the method I use for all of my Calathea. I fertilize my Calathea about half as often as I do my other plants. They're very fertilizer sensitive, so I do my normal dilution like I do with all of my plants. But with the Calathea, I only use that fertilized water, every other time. And the other thing I'd say is, if possible, water with distilled or reverse osmosis water. I find using distilled water not only is better for the plant, and most people recommend it for Calathea, it also helps when you're troubleshooting because you know that your water isn't one of the reasons why your Calatheas are misbehaving or getting brown tips. It can't be because you're using the wrong kind of water. So I also like it for that reason. Ever since I moved into my house, I installed a reverse osmosis system under my sink. I will definitely link the one I purchased. There's a million of them on Amazon. They're kind of all the same, so just pick whichever ones works for you if that's something you're interested in. Even though I only fertilize every other time I water my Calatheas, every time I make sure to add CalMag Plus, and I do that with all my plants. This is always in the water, no matter if I'm adding other supplements or not. I make sure to add this. This is pretty affordable and lasts a really long time. That's definitely a super quick run through of how I care for my Calathea. There's more nuance than that, of course, but for the purposes of this video, it's mostly about the collection. I just wanted to get in some quick little tidbits about the care in this video. And the first one on this list is my Calathea roseopicta Dottie. Now this one I had in my last video and it has gotten a little bit bigger. The leaves are definitely bigger. This plant used to be much fuller than it is now, but I ended up underwatering it a few times and losing a few leaves. Generally speaking, this is one of the easiest Calatheas I have ever had. Has it gotten bugs? Yes. It does handle being treated for bugs very well. And also, even though I've underwatered it a few times and have lost leaves, it's still doing fairly well, and it does grow leaves very, very quickly for me. It has a leaf right here that's coming in, of course. I'm really happy with it, and I don't have much negative to say about it. It does pick up bugs like any other Calathea. I typically have problems with spider mites. I get spider mites all the time, and it's a constant battle trying to thwart them off. But currently, this one does not have spider mites. I do treat all of my Calatheas with Captain Jack's solution. I just spray them probably weekly, just as a prevention measure. And this one right now is doing really, really well. With this Calathea in particular, I wait until the top layer of the soil is dry. You can tell just by running your finger over it if the soil moves easily or not. You can definitely tell. You can also tell by just picking up the pot and seeing if it's on the lighter side. Right now, this one definitely is on the needs to be watered side, so I'm going to water it right after this video. Yeah, they're a little bit harder to find than the regular roseopicta medallion that you kind of see everywhere, but I find that this one is much hardier for me. I kill roseopicta medallions like nobody's business, and this one is still the same one that I had from a year and a half ago, and it's still doing really well, even though I've neglected it a few times. So overall, very, very happy with this. This is my Calathea rattlesnake, or my lancifolia. This is a newer addition that I've gotten in the last year, and I'll say about the rattlesnake, this thing grows so slow. I have seen 2 leaves grow on this since I've gotten it, and actually right now I do technically have a little growth point right here. This little sort of neon nub right there is a new leaf. So that is the first time I've seen a new leaf in the last 3 months. So this one grows super, super slowly. I will say that I have not even come close to killing this one. This one is pretty resilient. It can handle all sorts of different lighting situations. Most Calatheas want sort of medium indirect light, and I feel like this one is no different, but it also can tolerate a little bit less. And I found that putting it in awesome light and putting it in lower light, I don't get any more growth. And it may just be mine, but this one overall is fine. Would I buy this again? Probably not. I may in the future consider a 6-inch pot that was a little bit fuller than this one, but this little 4-inch pot is not doing it for me. It is so unbelievably sad looking with its little leaves, and it just does not grow fast enough. I do think it's cute. It does come with the purple on the backs of the leaves. My newest leaves are not developing that purple, which usually implies that you need less light, but it is getting very little light. So part of me is thinking that I've kind of shot too far and I need to bring it back and give it a little bit more light than what I've been giving it. So I will try that next. It still will grow the leaves and it's fine. It's got a little bit of a purple hue on the back of there, but not a ton. It's generally faded, but the older leaves definitely have that darker underside. So I do think they're very cute. I like the little ripple on the leaf. I like the pattern. The rattlesnake is kind of like if the rufibarbra and makoyana had a baby, and I do have both of those. So I do really like this. It's a little small and dinky and doesn't grow enough for me, but I can't complain. This is one of the few Calathea I've had that have given me almost no trouble since I bought it. It's a very low stress plant. Half the time I forget I have it, and it's still happy as a clam. So overall, very good Calathea if you're someone who does not want a high maintenance plant. This would be a good option, but I would recommend buying a bigger plant from the jump. This one is a little bit of a sadder story. This is my Calathea orbifolia. I cannot seem to make this a big bushy plant again. I keep losing leaves and I keep getting these sort of brown edges, and I've gotten so many of them to the point where I've actually started trimming off edges of the leaf in order to preserve as much of the leaf as possible. It might be that this is being waterlogged a little bit, and that's my guess. I do have some new leaves coming in. There's this one right here and another one over here. This plant's happiness seems to come in waves where it's either on a really good upswing where it's just producing all the leaves in the world, or it's just all of the leaves are rotting off. So it goes in waves back and forth. So hopefully this means I'm on an upward swing. I've got this in a self-watering pot, and I think generally I need to let this one dry out a little bit more before I refill the reservoir. I know this one does not like to dry out at all, but I feel like it needs to at least lose some of that moisture just a little bit. Part of me wants to lift this up and check out the root system. Lifting this up so we can look at the root system together here. They're nice and drippy. It seems like there's a little bit of rot on the roots, so that might be part of the reason. I think it's definitely getting overwatered a little bit. I'll do some quick diagnostics on it. But for the moment, it is getting new leaves and it seems on the happy side. So I might just pull off some of those dead roots and kind of give it a once over before I put it back. Oh look, actually, I said there was 2 leaves growing. There's actually a third one right here that's growing. So it's definitely on the happy side. it just doesn't look the best right now. I feel like this is always the status of my orbifolia. I'd say with my orbifolia, about a third of the leaves look like utter garbage and the rest of the plant looks great. If I really felt like it, I would probably chop off all of the leaves that look like garbage, but I don't want too few leaves on it. I still want it to, you know, produce that energy. So I let it have the ugly leaves, and part of me thinks I should just cut them all off from the jump and just call it a day. But yeah, that is my little orbifolia. I'm like 95% sure that this is one of those plants that is now a Goeppertia. So yeah, Goeppertia orbifolia, Calathea orbifolia, what have you. This next Calathea is very similar to the orbifolia, but this is my rotundafolia, and it's another one of these like Goeppertia style Calatheas, at least ones that I know are Goeppertia style Calatheas. And this one has about the same issues that my orbifolia has. I get a lot of brown sort of rot almost. It looks like it's rotting off of the plant and I get these brown tips. I have a hunch that this keeps happening because the plant isn't drying out enough. And I'm not exactly sure why it's not drying out enough. I keep trying to let the water run out and give it a few days before I will refill the reservoir, but it just always seems to be a little bit waterlogged. I'm gonna lift it up and check on roots. Yeah, see this main root that's down here, that looks completely rotten. Oh, there's at least some rot on that. This is probably going through the very same problem that the other Calathea is going through, basically. I will say that this plant does not lose nearly as many leaves as the orbifolia. It keeps staying nice and lush, and it just only loses some of these ones that are on the very bottom of the plant and not the brand new leaves, whereas I feel like the orbifolia just kind of depends. Sometimes you'll lose new leaves, sometimes you'll lose old leaves. And this one, it seems to only target the old leaves when it's not doing great. But this one is new to my collection since the last video. I'm really happy with it. I think it's really cute. I keep seeing the leaves get slightly bigger every time. It is having its issues, so it's not gonna, you know, thrive and get gigantic for me, at least not yet. I think it's grown a little bit since I bought it. So, you know, I'm happy. It's sustaining itself. It's in a little self-watering pot. Once the root problems are taken care of, I should be seeing some increase in growth, sustaining its leaves, things like that. I just got to figure out the overwatering issue, but it's doing so great. Look how cute it is. The next Calathea I'd like to talk about is one of my favorites, which is my warscewiczii. My Calathea Awesome, my Calathea Velvet Touch. It is still as gorgeous as ever. It did have a little bit of a pest problem, but I caught it early. So a few of the leaves have a little bit of damage from that, but nothing too crazy. In my previous video, I had one stalk of this plant be really long and then have a little cluster at the top. I have since cut that off and planted it directly into the soil, which is this little guy right here. I lost quite a few leaves off of that. I lost about half of them while it was recuperating. This one still isn't doing great, but I have grown new leaves from it and it has stabilized really nicely. Yeah, after I cut it off, I didn't even let it root in water. I literally just plopped it right in the soil, but it has since stabilized and it's been in this pot directly for a few months now. So it's definitely not a fluke at this point. It definitely has made some roots. I have not like tried to pull it out, but I do not screw around with my Calatheas. If they're happy, if they're not dying, I just don't touch. I don't leave, I leave things alone. I'm too worried I'm gonna jinx it. So this little stalk right here should be good. So I've got 3 little clusters on the base there. But yeah, I still have all of these lovely, beautiful leaves. It is still this gigantic, gorgeous plant that I cannot get enough of. And yes, it attracts bugs like crazy. I spray it all the time. And I also do a once over, and anytime I see little dots, I check the back of the leaves for spider mites all the time. And anytime I see little white dots, I just clean the whole thing very, very thoroughly. And it does a fantastic job. I actually have no complaints about this plant. Like you can see, I have it in a self-watering planter, just like I do the orbifolia. At least with my warscewiczii, it loves being in a self-watering pot. It never really dries out too much. This one can tolerate being a little bit drier for like a few seconds, basically. What I do with this one is I wait until only the tippy top of the soil is dry. And what I mean by that is if you touch the top layer, just, you know, graze it with the top of your finger, if they crumble a little bit and it's not wet, but if you kind of dig into the soil just a slight amount and it's like a little on the damp side, that is when I will rewater. If you're using a moisture meter, generally when it drops down to like a 4.5 is when I will rewater this one. And it seems to be doing really, really well. I've got, of course, a few leaves with some damage from the spider mites, but overall it's really fantastic. I haven't lost a ton of leaves on this summer. It's just been really, really primo Calathea. Love this one. Honestly, probably my favorite. Even though it's been a little bit difficult, it's totally worth it. I love the velvety leaves. I love the shape of it. I love how big it is. Just overall great plant. The next plant is my one Maranta. This is my Maranta Lemon Lime. I feel like I need to give this plant a name because all the plants I name just die, and I have a feeling that this one is just trying to die on me. Last spring, I was getting 6-7 new leaves at a time with this plant, and this year I've gotten maybe like 7 total. I've got this new leaf right here, one here, and another one growing. But I am not exactly sure why this plant is so upset with me. I have lost so many leaves over the winter with this bad boy. It is just, he is just struggling. And I actually checked the roots to make sure that this wasn't a root issue, and it's not a root issue. All the roots look healthy. It's not an overcrowded pot, anything like that. It must be watering, I'm guessing. Because for the longest time I had this in the exact same spot, never moved it, got the same light all year round. It had artificial light on it. It seemed very happy with the artificial light, blooming, growing. I had flowers, and this year it's just like, nope, negative, all bad. Do not pass go, do not collect $200, just no. It is having a rough year, and this spring and summer it did not do much better. These new leaves that I'm getting on this one little bushel is just like the last ditch hope that this poor thing has. I'm trying to focus on my watering schedule. I know these in particular do actually like to dry out a little bit more than some of the other ones. This one's more like an alocasia as far as how I water it, or at least I think, because clearly mine's not doing too well. So at least that's what I've been doing, and it's just not that great. Granted, this is not the worst Maranta I've ever seen. I've seen ones in stores that look worse than this one, so that's its own story. So I definitely don't think all hope is lost with this one, but compared to what I was seeing last year, this is just atrocious. Oh my gosh. Like maybe we can get this, maybe we can come to an agreement. If you can just lay down. Yes, you can lay down. Maggie is afraid of thunderstorms, so I'm sure that's why she's being clingy right now, because it's just started raining. But yeah, I joke that I've given up on this plant. I really haven't. It's doing fine. It's just, it's so sad compared to last year. It's just like, ugh, so much struggle. Now on to my Stromanthe. This is my Stromanthe sanguine. Still don't know how to pronounce it. It's been a year and I still have not figured out how to pronounce this plant. Either way, one thing I did recently was I down potted it. So I lost a ton of leaves on this plant, and then it was recuperating as of last year, and it's still doing really well. It's a small plant, it's a tiny little plant, but it's doing great. I have not lost any leaves. It's still growing, you know, 1 leaf a month, maybe. It's got this lovely leaf coming in right here, you know. It was in an oversized pot last time, so I just made sure to put it in a brand new pot with my own potting soil mix, and it seems to love it. It didn't have a ton of acclimation time. Just overall, this Stromanthe has been super awesome and very low maintenance for the most part. Aside from its initial, you know, die off come back situation, it's been doing really, really well. Haven't had any issues with it to speak of. I think it's super cute, actually. I like the coloring on it. It's got the purple backs to the leaves. Oh, Maggie. Sorry if you can hear the rain. I apologize. This Stromanthe is probably one of the simpler ones where it has just that light kind of streak down the middle and the nice dark on the outside, but it does have the purple backs like a lot of Calathea and Stromanthe tend to have. It's just one of the easier Calatheas I have, so very happy with it, and it's super cute. For some bad news, I did actually lose the Triostar. I put it in a self-watering pot as a last-ditch effort to try and save it, and I am not even sure if the root system is still alive. I have no idea. It kind of has some pull to it. There's some roots that feel like kind of alive. I don't know. But I keep watering this in hopes that it'll grow back, and it's just dormant. So for now, it is presumed dead, but I do have it in Leucosa pond. If it does grow and it grows in pond, that would be fantastic. If not, I will just reuse this for something else. But for now, it's a little, you know, rhizome just like and roots in a pot of Leucosa. But that is my Triostar. And here is my Majestica. So the Majestica looks a lot like a Triostar with the coloring. It just has more of that white sort of speckling on it. This Majestica is doing ridiculously well considering I've had to chop off a few tips and things like that to prevent it from browning the entire leaf. For the most part, as far as care, it's very similar to this one. It's just this one is a different color scheme. I do have this leaf here that is kind of on the way out, but you know, I'll leave that on there for a little bit longer until some of this section is brown. I don't mind that it's not the cutest thing in the world. I do have, in here I do have one little stalk of new growth, and then another little, you know, center growth that's coming up, but it's very tiny. But for the most part, you know, this one is the same as the other one. In the spring and summer months, I get about one new leaf every single month, and it's doing well. It's got some nice color to it. Some of these newer ones, they're getting bigger leaves again. I think back when you saw this before, it was still very much in recuperating mode. It did not have a ton of new growth, and if it did, it was either small or coming up half rotten. Pretty sure that's how this one was for a good minute. But now it seems like it's stabilized a lot. Seems very happy. And honestly, if this is happy, I'm happy. Like the Triostar, like the sanguine, it does have the purple backs to it. The fronts are just a little bit different than the Triostar. Honestly, I think this one is more beautiful than the Triostar. I know, sacrilegious. I still love a Triostar and would love it to work for me. And it still breaks my heart that I haven't gotten one to live yet. But this one is an excellent substitute for me, if not outright replacement. If this one stays alive, if this one keeps growing, if this one, you know, I can actually split up or, you know, get multiple plants into one pot and make this nice and big and beautiful, I would be a very happy camper, and I could see myself not needing a Triostar. But this one is the Majestica, and holy cow, so cute and doing awesome, which is a surprise to me, and I will take it. But it is a complete surprise that this one recuperated so well and is doing fantastic in this little 6-inch pot. So yeah, now on to some bad news. I have a few plants that are in quarantine for spider mites, for bugs, for pests, for wanting to die on me. But I definitely want to show you everything. And one of the plants that is doing just as bad as the last time you saw them, that is my Calathea Beauty Star. It finally grew new leaves for me, and it got spider mites again. So it's in a semi-dormant phase again. I've been treating it, I'm checking it all the time. I think this one is actually stabilized, but I'm still doing my treatments on it just in case. But it finally grew leaves. It took so long for this poor plant to grow new leaves and immediately got attacked again. I feel so bad for it, honestly. I also have my other one still. It is basically a pot of dirt. Hopefully at some point it'll grow again. but honestly, I do not have much hope for it. This one I might actually dig out and see if the roots are, you know, still roots, if there's still a rhizome in there, but it's just been a pot of dirt for the better part of 8 months. So in my last video, I had one plant with like a single stalk on it and the other one was just a pot of dirt. This was the one that was the pot of dirt from before, and the other one was the one with the one stalk, which it did keep for a good solid, you know, 5 months before it finally fell off. But this one was recuperating first and then of course got hit again. I will say, of the leaves that I did get, they do have that nice blush color that you're supposed to get. This one looks very similar to an ornata pinstripe, where it's got the little light brush strokes, except this one has a little bit more pink and the leaf itself is less dark. This one is more of a light green and the ornata is more of a dark green. I will show you an ornata next, just for comparison's sake. But yes, the leaves that this does have were great. They looked cute. I was very happy with it, but then it got attacked again. But the leaves it has have sustained itself and it's on the mend. So hopefully, like my Stromanthe, this will start blowing up next spring, maybe in the fall. If I'm lucky, it'll produce another leaf before the end of fall. But that is the state of this one right now. Very much in the same situation I was before. Not much has improved, but I still have hope. Next, we have my Calathea ornata pinstripe. This one gets bugs all the time. I feel like it doesn't go more than a week without getting more spider mites. It's like, this is the ground zero for my spider mite problem. I will say though, compared to last year, this one looks fantastic. It has grown so many new leaves and they're gigantic. They're like the size of my face. Look at it, it's the size of my face. You can't tell me that this plant is not gorgeous. This plant does not like me very much because it keeps trying to die on me and I refuse to let this plant die. And one thing that gives me a lot of hope on this plant is the stalk situation. Calatheas grow in little bunches and then they grow in between the stalks. Well, this one has 4 completely independent stalk groupings. I'm sure there's a scientific name for this that I don't know, but it's got 4 different sections of plant. Actually, technically 5. 5 different groups of plant. It's got some roots coming out the bottom. This one in particular is like basically a foot at this point. This thing is so incredibly strong. It definitely took its dormancy period to just like build the biggest, beefiest roots possible. It is just so ready to become a big, huge established plant, and I will keep treating it. Luckily, it's only like 8 leaves, so doing my spider mite treatment on this is not very labor intensive, so I can do this over and over and over again. I will go on this merry-go-round with you. We will fight. We will have a fight and a war against these bugs, and we will win. Damn it. But yeah, this plant is such a success story and a testament to why you never give up on Calathea. This thing was 1 leaf. This thing was 1 leaf in my last Calathea collection video. It lost that leaf, it was a pot of dirt, and now it is a fully established plant, growing, happy, sustaining itself, and basically a big ol' honkin' plant. As far as care goes, I feel like I can't really speak to it because I keep killing them. Since this plant has come back to life, I just water this before it dries out much at all. I do the same thing as I do with the warscewiczii, where if the very, very tippy top is crumbly and dry, but the underneath is still moist, that is when I water it. That is my Calathea ornata pinstripe. Look at those leaves. Tell me that is not friggin' fantastic. Ah, she's gorgeous. Gorgeous, I say. So this one here is my Calathea makoyana. I did not have this the last time I talked to you, I don't think. This is a plant that I have bought in the past and lost to spider mites and then bought again. This one definitely did have spider mites, but not nearly as bad as some of my other ones. I managed to catch it in time and I spray it constantly. So I think it's definitely at a point where it's not getting worse, but I haven't eradicated it quite yet. I keep losing leaves along the bottom of the plant and I keep trimming them off, but it's still a very nice, full, bushy plant, as you can see. I am so sorry. I am like I'm like 100% positive you can hear that rain. I am so sorry. Now, I made sure to get another makoyana because I loved my last one so much. Because, I mean, look at this. Look at it. The coloring is a lot like the rattlesnake. It's just got the nice broader leaves. It's got purple backs, but it's not solid purple. It's the same pattern as the front. It's just a purple toned version on the back. The other thing about the makoyana that I really love is that if you look closely to the leaf itself, it's got that little mosaic pattern that is exactly the same as the musaica, which I think is not technically a Calathea anymore, but either way, it's the same type of pattern. So if you're obsessed with the pattern on the musaica, this might be a good one to check out. I will say, my issue with bugs aside, this is one of the hardiest, most wonderful Calathea. It can stand to be dried out just a little bit, and it doesn't, you know, pass out the way my roseopicta Dottie does. It will sustain itself really well when it's underwatered a little bit. Well, I shouldn't say underwatered. It does really well when it dries out between waterings. This one is very much easier to take care of than a lot of Calatheas as far as watering goes. And honestly, I just love this so much. It's amazing. This Calathea is my Calathea zebrina. It's really resilient. Despite the way it looks, it is the scraggliest little scraggly of the scraggly, but this thing has basically had spider mites for a year. Just like a solid year. It definitely holds its own really well, even when it's being attacked by bugs, which a lot of the other Calatheas just kind of like give up and die. This one refuses to give up and die on me, and I'm very grateful for that. The zebrina will be like slightly velvety, not nearly as much as a warscewiczii, but it definitely has a velvety soft feel to it. It's got the green backs on them. This one, despite all of its struggles, it does have a bunch of new leaves. It has this one, which has the brown tip already, and I'm 90% sure that is because I forgot to water it on one of my watering cycles. So this plant was not very happy, hence the brown tips all over the place, but it still seems okay because it's got that leaf coming in, it's got this leaf coming in, it's got a little leaf down here coming in, and it's got technically a leaf here coming in, though the entire tip is brown. I don't know. This poor thing has been struggling so much, but it seems to be doing okay. I do feel like this plant has not been healthy for me in a good solid year, so I can't really speak to its care instructions because I don't remember. I don't remember a time when this was healthy. I should rephrase that. I remember a time when it was healthy, and I remember what it looked like and how it made me feel as a plant owner thinking of how beautiful my zebrina was. What I don't remember is how I cared for it when it was in that condition. How I water this one is probably the same as I do my makoyana. I let it dry out a little bit, but I probably shouldn't. I think this one likes being watered a little more often because I keep getting curly tips and things like that, and I keep getting floppy leaves in between watering, so I'm pretty sure this one is more of a stay on top of it with your watering kind of plant. But even though she looks sick, she's still cute to me, and she's got new leaves coming in. What more can I ask for, really, for a plant like this? The sickly queen herself, my Calathea rufibarbra. This poor plant. This plant was basically sitting next to the Calathea zebrina for 8 months. While the zebrina had spider mites, I had no idea because it was so resilient and looked just fine. And therefore, this plant also had spider mites and was resilient and looked just fine. So at a minimum, I will give these plants credit for sort of withstanding a bug infection as well as they do and holding their stature, holding that beautiful leaf aloft and not just keeling over and dying on me. But what that means is when I found out it finally had spider mites, it was so bad. You can tell just by looking at these leaves, they are spotty. Every single one of them has dry bits on it. It just looks like it's about to die. But this one is on the mend. I actually featured this one along with my white fusion in my extreme spider mite video. I will link that down below and up in the eye for you. But I will say for this one, despite its looks, it is keeping itself together pretty darn well. A lot of this damage came from the infection itself, and it does take on some damage when I do my extreme treatment. I think it just like, It sucks a lot of the moisture out of the plant, and you have to water it frequently after you do that extreme treatment, just FYI. And I learned that the hard way because these things dried out so fast after that. So I lost a few leaves because of that. Because before this thing had spider mites, and probably honestly even during its spider mite infection, it was putting off so many leaves. I'm not seeing any new growth yet, but this plant went through the ringer, so honestly I'm not surprised that it hasn't, you know, come back the way that it did last summer. Keep on top of your watering with this one. At least make sure that it doesn't dry out. This one just dried out super fast for me. It probably has a lot to do with the fact that this pot is extremely crowded, but just make sure that you stay on top of your watering. I put it in a self-watering pot because watering it weekly was not enough. So I had to put it in a self-watering pot so that I could keep my sanity, basically. But that's the Calathea rufibarbra. Does not look great, but it's still fine. It's still fine. I'm happy with it. You know, I'm happy it's on the mend. It doesn't seem to be getting worse. I still spray this with Captain Jack's all the time. Calathea rufibarbra. And my very last Calathea, the one I'm sure you're all dying to see an update on, and that is my Calathea white fusion. My beautiful, lovely angel who got spider mites super, super bad. I treated her for months and months. It didn't seem to do much of anything aside from like just barely keep, you know, the bugs at bay, just enough to not kill the entire plant, but it was still thriving. So I gave this one a full-on extreme treatment along with my rufibarbra. So far, so good. The leaves are all a little bit damaged, of course, from the spider mites and from the treatment. That's a very extreme treatment. I would not do it for any plants that were not just like inundated with bugs. Considering how fragile this plant is, and considering I lost my last plant to spider mites, actually repeatedly, this one is recuperating extremely well. I am honestly shocked that these leaves are still on the plant, that not all of them are crispy. Like this leaf legit looks okay. This leaf looks legit okay. You know, obviously as a whole, it's very brown. It's got some like weird green tinge to it. It's not ideal. The time I showed this plant before the spider mite treatment, this thing was shooting off multiple leaves every single week. I was getting like 2-3 leaves a week on this plant. And the fact that so many of these leaves are still sustained on this plant, even though I did multiple spider mite treatments over months and months, and that extreme spider mite treatment, this is nothing short of a miracle. Just putting that out there. If nothing else gives you any reassurances, the most finicky, easy to kill plant, I think, in my entire collection by far is this plant. And I managed to save it using my treatment methods. It doesn't look good. It's rough. I'm not gonna lie, she's rough. But holy cow, she's doing okay. And if you're like, Sarah, come on, I don't believe you. That looks like garbage. I don't think you can salvage it. I've got new growth on this plant. Can you see them? This is one, and this is the other one. It's coming back. It's coming back. She's bouncing back, guys. She's bouncing back. As an update from last year, basically, she got spider mites real bad, but she's doing okay. She's still okay, and she's gonna recuperate. I've actually got her in my Millsbow IKEA greenhouse, and it's higher humidity there, not quite as high as it was getting before, but it seems to be doing okay. I don't know. I give this plant between 50 and 70% humidity. It fluctuates depending on the time of the week. Usually as soon as I water, the humidity is really high in the cabinet, and then as time goes on, it steadily drops. And I think it's doing okay. I wouldn't be able to tell, honestly, if the humidity was causing a problem because it's so damaged right now. But we'll see how the new growth comes in and how the new growth does. Oh, it's so exciting to say that. But yeah, this is my white fusion, definitely on the mend. Treatment works, stay on top of it, unlike me. I'm just very proud of myself. I'm proud of this plant. We did it together, we're a team. I'm trying to maintain my reputation as the Calathea white fusion whisperer, but you know, I can only do so much. But I think I did okay considering how spider mite ridden this thing was. It was everywhere. and it survived and it's growing again. So I honestly can't ask for more than that. But that was all of my Calathea, the good, the bad, the ugly. I showed you everything, every single thing that could possibly be a Calathea, even though they're just stumps or pots of dirt. I showed you every single Calathea I own. If you found this video interesting, helpful, amusing, or if you really like Calathea like I do, don't forget to give this video a like and comment down below. Subscribe to my channel, you'll get more awesome Calathea content, I'm sure of it. These are really my favorite plants. I wish they weren't so difficult to take care of, but honestly, taking care of a plant like this gives me a lot of pride when I do recuperate them, when I do, you know, save them from the brink of disaster. It is so much more satisfying to bring them back to life. And honestly, I just think they're the most beautiful plant in the world. So I'm more than happy to continue showing you all of my tips and tricks for keeping Calathea alive, as well as all my failures for when they struggle. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I will catch you next time. Bye!